every single currency in that region collapsed against the US dollar. Most of the businesses were badly hit. Economies across the region were devastated. And our business collapsed during 3 to 4 months. We had an office, a large office in Hong Kong. We had an office in Korea. We had salespersons in Philippines, Singapore. So one of the biggest challenges for me as a leader was how to handle this crisis. The second example goes to 2008, almost 10 years after the first one. I was the managing director in India for a British multinational company. And Lehman Brothers in September 2018 folded up. And with that started the global financial crisis of 2008, when the Western economies faced an absolute crisis. Many of the companies went bankrupt. And our parent company's business in the UK nearly collapsed. And there was a lot of reports that they will close offices all over. And I was the leader for the India business, wondering how to handle the employees or the customers. So that was the second crisis that I faced. And there were many lessons that I learned based on these two experiences. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the current crisis we are facing, of course, is many times more serious and bigger than what those two crises were, both in terms of the impact it has on lives and livelihood. Most of you are familiar with the word acronym VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And this was introduced by the US military sometime in the 90s, and it got into the business dictionary about 7-8 years back. The current situation we are facing is an extreme VUCA, and I would like to call it EVUCA, EVUCA, extreme VUCA situation. So how do leaders deal with this kind of extreme VUCA situation? There's been considerable amount of Western thinking by management experts, business leaders, academicians, about what are the leaders' competencies or what are leaders' skill sets that are required to deal with a crisis situation like this. And I came across a couple of interesting reports recently, and I'd like to share those with you. Let me try and see if I can open my slide deck. Can you see the slides?
You'll have to do a screen share, Pandit.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that. Okay, let me try again. Yeah, there we are. Okay, can everybody see the slides?
Yeah.
Okay, so McKinsey drew up a report in March 2020, and they classified the current crisis as landscape scale crisis. And I'll read how they define landscape scale. Unexpected event of enormous scale, overwhelming speed, resulting in a high degree of uncertainty. So what they said is, to deal with this crisis, what a leader needs to do is to set up a network of teams to deal with it. Maintain a deliberate calm, which is detach yourself from the crisis and stay calm so that you can think. Have bounded optimism, be optimistic, but be bounded by a bit of realism. Demonstrate empathy with all the people around, and communication. These are the key aspects of leadership skills. The second report was a report by Harvard Business School, Harvard Business Review in April 2020, which said, what are the behaviors that help leaders manage a crisis? Decide with speed, agility, adapt boldly, flexibility, reliably deliver, focus on execution, and engage with stakeholders, whether they are customers, shareholders, or employees, for impact. Now, there have been various other management experts and thinkers, as I said, who talk about hyper agility, resilience. And there was another Harvard Business School professor who said 7 C's: calm, confidence, communication, collaboration. And he went on to add cash as the last one, surprisingly for me. So, and there's several others who put together what are the leadership skills. And I would summarize these, and based on my own experience, as 5 key competencies that a leader needs to demonstrate in a crisis like this: agility, flexibility, resilience, communication, and empathy. Now, if you look at most of the Western literature and what I have just outlined, all of them talk about leadership skills. What are the behaviors, competencies that leaders need to demonstrate? There is a whole lot of thinking, knowledge available in Indian philosophy, Indian mythology, about what are the leadership requirements, or what are the, how leaders can deal with situations like this. And I think it's important for us to understand what this, our ancient Indic wisdom, has to offer to leaders in a situation like this. And none better than Raghu to talk about this. So let me hand over to Raghu to talk about these aspects. And let me see if I can stop share. Over to you, Raghu.
Thanks a lot, Pandit. You've also upped the expectations from me. Yeah? Okay, let me start with by saying that one of the critical attributes that has been recommended over and over again in our ancient scriptures to deal with uncertainty is to start with saying, I don't know. Yeah, so I will start by saying, I don't know. And why have they talked about this? Yeah, it's important to understand. What happens to one's mind? You know, in the Indian thinking, buddhi is supposed to be something called nishchayatmakam, that my buddhi tries continuously to quickly go into a solution, into a conclusion, right? And this process is called a khyati. So it tries to grasp something very quickly and very often ends up with avidya khyati, which means it makes wrong assumptions about the nature of time, about the nature of the phenomenon, the nature of the experience, the nature of the human impact, and so on. And therefore, one very critical ability is to stay with uncertainty, look at the anxiety that this uncertainty produces without giving in to the anxiety. That's a very critical starting point. Yeah, so I'd invite everybody to practice that. And I'm not going to quickly jump into conclusions. I'm going to offer a few possible ways of looking at it, because I think more than anything else, what the Indic wisdom offers us are lenses and frames through which to look at reality. And that is why it becomes very, very interesting to observe. Yeah. So let me talk about 2 important things that I think Indian managers in particular have in front of them, and I think it's an advantage. No? See, the first I think great advantage to me is represented by A.R. Rahman's music. Yeah, to me, A.R. Rahman's music is a fantastic coming together of Eastern and Western. Yeah, his ability to use Carnatic, in 3 minutes, the way he delineates a raga is fantastic. And he will do this with some heavy orchestra in the back, which sounds perfectly in harmony, right? Now, I think this is a great ability because the Indian mind has the capability of looking at the Eastern or the Western or bringing in different ideas and assimilating it in a way that you make it our own. Yeah. So one of the first things that struck me when you were sharing your slide deck was that many of the things you're talking about, like you yourself said, are skills. Right? Now, without questioning any of the skills, right? The Indic idea would say will is much more important than skill. Okay? And what does it mean when you say will is more important than skill? Now, take something very simple. For example, deliberate calmness. Deliberate calmness is not a skill. It's an act of will, where I have to discover from inside me the ability, like we said when I started speaking, to stay with what is not known and manage your own anxiety, right? And this has got 2 or 3 components. One very important component is physical health. Okay, now I've dealt a lot. My entire career started with, my own career started with dealing with turnaround companies. And a lot of my initial consulting was with turnarounds, right? And I've come across this repeatedly, that in the face of anxiety, if the leader is not healthy, he finds it very difficult to stay calm because his responsiveness to every little danger signal that comes becomes very edgy, right? And unless I find an inner level of calmness, right, what happens is I can't put together data by taking bits and pieces of data and sitting together and evolving a pattern out of it. Because unless I discover a pattern in what is happening, complex systems problems are very difficult to solve. Yeah, because complex systems problems are even beyond statistical realities. Most managers, most leaders I see don't even place data in a statistical reality. Complex things become more than that. Yeah. And the other thing is, if I go through some of your list and things like that, most of it, if I use the Mahabharata characters as 5 forms of power, 5 forms of leadership, as archetypal forms, not as stereotypes. Okay, so when I say Bhima, don't think of Tara Singh coming on your screen. Yeah, think of a certain ability to deal with adventure, an ability to actually love the unknown and things like that. And you can look like, anybody on earth and still be a Bhima inside you. So we look at these as archetypal. Yeah. Many of the things you're talking about will fall under the Yudhishthira archetype, staying calm, balanced, all of this, communicating from a certain place, whatever, right? And it's interesting to me because when you look at Hogan and when you look at many of these 5F kind of things, what they have talked about is conscientiousness and things like this to predict success, right? Many of these are actually, from my framework, Yudhishthira type of capabilities. Yeah, and some of them are Bhima kind of capabilities, which are very good when the situation is stable, right? And when the situation suddenly becomes unstable, giving a list of behaviors and skills without looking at the internal process of how to is a problematic thing. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that in 10 or 15 minutes. But yeah, let's take a step back and say, if I use all the 5 Mahabharata characters and know when to use what, right? One of the most underused or underappreciated capabilities is the Nakula capability. And I think that may be the most important today, where you value this very quiet holding of the feelings, your ability to take toxic feelings and transform them into healing kind of energies, right? This is a great requirement and a great ability, which is a Nakula ability. I actually see many Indian managers have this ability, but not value it because it's not valued in the Western frame. Yeah. The other important capability would be the capability of Arjuna, where you go into a situation, you stand in the middle of opposing possibilities, allow yourself to be vulnerable. And if you look at the initial set of responses of Arjuna, they're all psychosomatic responses to stress, right? And Krishnamacharya would always say that Arjuna didn't do his yoga asanas properly. That's why he went through that, because they're all stress reactions. And then, therefore, he has chitta vibhramshamaha, all of this kind of thing. He loses his mind. So you have to stand in the middle of opposing different pulls and pushes and remain calm and look at the total system and ask fundamental questions, right? That's another very, very important ability, which is an Arjuna capability. The tendency under these kind of VUCA situations is to become very tactical. Not that tactical is not required, but if the tactical is not anchored in a larger understanding of the systemic issues, it'll lead you astray. And especially in difficult situations like this, and I'm coming from my experience of turnaround situations, if you take a few wrong tactical decisions, you pay heavily and you don't have the luxury of time that you have in more peace-oriented contexts to make shifts and make changes. Yeah, so these are some of the critical things that I would look at, and I would look at placing all the skills that you're talking about, Pandit, into this frame of saying, how do I develop will, and 5 kinds of will, right? One is the will to look at things, go into chaos, bring in stability, which is the Yudhishthira capability, right? The other is to enjoy the spirit of adventure, right? Third is a Nakula ability, which is to absorb toxic emotions and convert them into healing processes, right? The fourth is the Sahadeva ability to stand back, watch very carefully before coming into any conclusions. And the Arjuna ability, which is to actually look at the whole system, right? Look at fundamental questions, and then act from a place of deep quietness. Yeah, so if I should put this together, I would say there are 2 very important aspects. Now, one is a visceral aspect of leadership, where your body and your prana, whatever you want to call it, has to be extremely powerfully anchored, right? And when you have this visceral capability, you're capable of being aware, balanced, clear, dynamic, embodied, and focused. Yeah, these are the requirements of people who do Kalari and other martial arts. Yeah, these are the 5 things that they're supposed to have. And in the mindful aspects of it, right, the same things will translate, no? The awareness will be awareness of self. Am I getting anxious? Am I acting from wrong assumptions? What's my awareness of the self, right? Be balanced in a state of shantam, so you don't react, right? Evoke your contextual intelligence, right? Be dharmic, so you carry and have solutions not just for yourself, whatever, but the whole context, because it's the whole context that is suffering today, right? Be evocative and energetic, and of course, be focused, right? And I can see all the skills you're talking about sitting neatly into this human energetic set of capabilities.
Yeah, thank you, Raghu. I think that's really, really interesting because having worked with the Western models of leadership for over a decade, more than a decade, there is a lot of emphasis on what the leader should do in relation to the external world, external context. There is very little in terms of what the leader should do internally within himself or herself.
Yeah.
How can the leader be strong within inner core strength, irrespective of the external world? How can the leader face that external world with confidence that ultimately it will lead to what is good for that community, for that team, or whatever? So that is awareness of that is coming through in the Western management philosophy as well. They talk about mindfulness, spirituality, but it's still at a very nascent level, at a very early stages.
If I may add, all of those are Eastern capabilities, mindfulness and so
Absolutely, absolutely.
on. And yeah, you have to go much further than just making mindfulness a utilitarian thing.
Yeah.
That's where the problem comes. You can't do Vipassana meditation as a utilitarian thing.
Right.
You have to do Vipassana to discover this space of inner awareness and balance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, intuition, your intuitive abilities grow tremendously. You're naturally compassionate. You don't have to put on this, and you don't have to show compassion. I don't see how compassion can be a skill. If you're showing compassion to me, I'll catch you out, man. If you don't have the inner dhridatana, if I'm not sitting in a shantam state inside, I don't see how you can appear confident or whatever the skill set is. No?
So how can leaders, what can they do to work on developing this inner strength, in your view?
Come and study yoga with me, man.
Other than that, any
and I'm not talking about asana and pranayama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I came across, and I must say that I attended that program by Quinergy, is that some of the programs that Quinergy does build that capability in a leader.
Of course, yeah. Because all our work is based on the Indic idea. It's based on that part of the yoga sutra that's called Antaranga Sadhana. How do I work with my mind? How do I work with my manas, my ahankara, and my buddhi? And it's a very powerful inner way of working. And the Mahabharata is actually an exemplification of many, many yogic practices. In fact, the Mahabharata discusses it, and some people say it's the first text on yoga. Yeah, the Yoga Vasishta and the Mahabharata may be the first texts on yoga. So it's a combination of many things. No? It's a combination of big. Fundamentally, there's a lot of self-reflectivity. And discovering the seeds of all of these. These 5 archetypal seeds are there in every one of us. Right? They don't have to be imported. They're there inside us. We have to start valuing them and nourishing them. And this crisis might be as good a time as any for this wake-up call.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is easy at one level, but it requires persistence. It's easy because it's there in our culture. It's, these concepts have been floating around. I just have to start valuing them and investing in them.
Yeah, I think it's important for leaders to realize that this aspect, developing the will aspect, is critical for their leadership. Whether it is crisis, it becomes acute, but even under any circumstance,
Absolutely.
it is necessary.
Absolutely. And the wisdom to use these 5 powers at the right time. Now, when do I have to use the Yudhishthira capability? When do I have to use the each of them in their heroic form?
Yeah.
And when do I use them in their maintenance form? Because the Yudhishthira in the maintenance context would ensure that things are stable, like persistence and things like that. In a heroic context, he will go into chaos and create order.
Right.
So each of them has their maintenance level capabilities and their heroic capabilities. And it's a beautiful framework. I find this very, very useful. I actually started using both the yoga I discovered when I was in deep, problems and started work and whatever. Luckily, I started with Krishnamacharya, and it helped me a tremendous amount to stabilize my mind. And working with leaders like Mr. Subaya and so on, who were willing to talk about what is happening to them and sharing, Mahabharata stories, enabling them to see the other possibilities. Yeah, it's been a beautiful journey of discovery of the power of these things.
Vivek, would you like to see if you want to, any questions you want to take? Or
Thanks, Pandit. Thanks. Great, fascinating conversation, and I think a lot of insights in terms of how you can work with the skill and will at the same time. One of the questions I need to ask both of you, and it seems to be the overwhelming, one of the key questions that most participants seem to ask is, what should organizations do? What should HR, L&D professionals actually do from a developmental perspective during these difficult times? It'll be great to hear your perspectives, both Pandit and Raghu.
Raghu, you want to go first, or?
Pandit, if you could.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think one of the key aspects, and particularly from what Raghu said, is that leadership development is not just about developing a few skills, leadership skills, put together in a few training programs, learning a few models of leadership. It's not that. It's not, let me put it this way, it's not just that alone. So far, most of our work in leadership development has been focusing on that, except for a few exceptions, but most of it has been focusing on those. I think it's extremely important for HR leaders, L&D leaders to realize that to really fully develop leadership potential, realize fully the leadership potential, they need to work on building the inner strength of leaders, which is what Raghu was referring to. I think that aspect, that realization is critical. Build that into leadership programs, particularly at the senior levels, and then of course cascaded down the levels of the organization.
Yeah.
You want to add to that, Raghu?
Yeah. See, what I would like to add, Vivek, is that there are two very important things that I have found. One is to have mentors that you can go and speak to honestly. Because I find a lot of managers trying to not own up to their own feelings, to appear confident and so on. Now, if I'm brittle inside, this confidence thing doesn't work and it becomes reactive. Okay. So being able to find somebody whom I trust, to be able to share with them what my feelings are, enables me to own up to my feelings, right? And go through a process, right? Not of denial, but not being scared of the fears and the anxieties either,
Hmm.
but to be able to look at them and discuss it with somebody who, in yoga, it's called a Vitaraga Vishayam. So I speak to somebody who doesn't trigger off my disturbances, my raga and dvesha. Right? Finding mentors like this is very important. The second, I think, is not to run after generic solutions. Each of us is unique, right? So appreciating this uniqueness is very, very important. Yeah, because I have found very often that, you know, this Western idea that has crept in of leadership skills and all that, people forget that many of them were actually anchored in wartime situations. You know, they've come out of officer-like qualities. That's the background of this competency development thing. And the other is Weber, right? Now, if you look at a war situation, it's a very clear single context. It's a Bhima context. You have to go there, you have to fight, you have to kill. So in that one context, I can define to you 4 or 5 set of skills and call them officer-like qualities. Now, today, business is not war of that kind. Now, business requires several different parts of yourself to be awakened in different contexts, right? So you cannot hold these kind of external ideas, right? And I found very, very successful leaders who are very quiet, who are not so-called great communicators, who have a tremendous ability to hold anxiety, to very quietly direct things. But very often they come and say, I've taken this test and I'm not scoring very high on this, I'm not scoring very high on that. But man, this guy is really, you know, holding his team together and he's doing phenomenal things in the organization. So I think one very important thing I would say today is trust yourself. Don't compare yourself to some benchmark that doesn't refer to you, because, you know, there are 2 very important ideas in yoga. Now, one is called Swabhiman and the other is called Swatantrata. So when people come to us for therapy, we try and enable all the time Swatantrata and Swabhiman. If a person loses Swatantrata, they feel dukkha and they feel oppressed. If they lose Swabhiman, they don't have the impetus to do something.
So
Now,
you talk about confidence and independence?
Yes, yes. And neither of them will come if I compare myself to an external standard. Both Swatantrata and Swabhiman comes when I trust myself. And I say, this is who I am, and I will be the best that I can be. I will not compare myself to some other standard and try to measure up, because whenever you put a standard and try to measure up, you're actually measuring the gap of what you're not. You're not valuing who you are. And in crisis time, more than any other time, it's extremely important to value who you are first. Right? Now, if I'm Dravid, I have to value the fact that I can hold one end up. I shouldn't try and play like Lakshman, no? Compare myself to somebody else, because my natural value that I bring is this tremendous holding ability. So this is a Yudhishthira who's showing his Yudhishthira capability. And on the other side, you have Lakshman, who is a combination of all kinds of things, right? He's bit Arjuna, he's bit Sahadeva, he'll do some magical shots. He'll play shots that you're not supposed to play in that kind of a context. That's his flair. So he has to really trust his flair, value it, and not think of playing like the book, for example. So in a crisis time, it's extremely important to trust yourself, to trust your uniqueness, value it, and act from there. And I think that's the first lesson in yoga. Swabhiman and Swatantrata. You can learn, you can read something and learn, but this learning should not be a measurement stick that I beat myself with. It can at best help me to see parts of myself. So if I read something and I say, hey, I really can communicate well, right? So I rely back on my own capability and say, okay, now let me make this more powerful. right? I might have lost track of this in my, in the context. So this kind of stuff, the list that you gave, for example, will remind me, but it cannot become a standard. I have to go back to myself and trust myself. And that is the yoga, actually. That is, really getting in touch with my own energies, with my own capabilities. And I cannot do better than what my capabilities are. An acorn can only be an oak tree. Yeah, suddenly because somebody says mangoes sell today, I cannot become a mango tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions, Vivek? Vivek, are you on mute?
Sorry, I guess my laptop had a bit of a Zoom fatigue as well. It just kept going back and forth. Okay. Thank you so much. I missed some parts of it because my connection was very intermittent and quite unstable. But thank you, Pandit, and thank you, Raghu. That was fascinating. Right? We're going to do a little something a little different in this webinar. What we've done is we've broken some of the participants into groups, and they're all going to be part of breakout rooms. What we want the participants to do is to join the breakout rooms. You'll get a notification saying you're in breakout room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just want you to join the breakout room, accept the invitation, join the breakout room. You have about 10 minutes among the set of people who are going to be in that breakout room to have a conversation, have a chat about what did you think of the conversation? What are the questions which came up for you? What did you feel about the conversation that happened? Share some thoughts, perspectives. We will
Can I suggest, Vivek, can I suggest something?
Yes.
I would rather that people shared what got triggered in them through listening to us. Don't worry about what we said. Yeah, what we said could have triggered some other thoughts. It'll be very nice if people shared those thoughts and we could hear about that. Yeah. So it's not about the discussion. Yeah. I think Vivek has again got frozen.
Again,
yeah. Did everybody else get it?
Shireen, are you able to do the breakout rooms?
Yes, yes, Pandit. So I've got the breakout rooms ready.
Okay.
And I'm going to break them. I'm going to open all the rooms right now.
This would be fantastic to
Not
have
dragged back, being kicked back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe,
sorry for that.
We kept a gun on our head and said, come.
Yeah, 2 minutes left.
We should budget an hour and a half, maybe next.
I think that was useful.
Yeah, we'd love to give more time for you people to discuss and share your views and so on, no?
Yeah.
Looks like most people are back, Vivek. It says 35 participants.
You have put us in a very contemplative mood, Raghu.
Oh, good, yeah. That's my hope. My basic thing is contemplative conversations.
It's like a workshop.
I think that's the way India has always gone, no?
It is.
Enable everybody to contemplate, bring out their intuition and trust it, man.
Inquiry-based learning. Simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks. Is everybody back, Shireen?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Like it.
Great. So let's go. I guess we'll start with group one. Even though I put on the chat saying if you have any questions for the panelists, but what we really would like to hear from you is what are your thoughts? I mean, what were some of the things that got evoked in you as you were discussing within the group, right? And let's share that, because I think that will be far more valuable to this group than just a question coming up. So let's start with group one, if you can. Who's the spokesperson?
If you don't mind, can I start?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm very glad. This is the first time I'm attending a meeting with Energy. I'm very glad to attend this very thought-provoking, and the title, Leadership and the Crisis. And in fact, it's quite new for me to understand this. And every concept, whatever you speak, seems to be very new. But I'm impressed. I got some idea now. I can also use these inputs in my life in terms of managing things in my organization. And I got an idea like when Mr. Panditji said, he gave me some triggering messages. Whenever there is the crisis, the important points is to keep ourselves cool, composed. And second one, we should try to show the empathy and try to communicate to be precise. This is a message that has triggered in me. And when Mr. Rahulji spoke, what I understood within him, whenever during the crisis, don't compare with any reference standard. Always have your own standard and value it so that you will improvise the confidence and the individuality. This is a triggering message. Now, to close, before I close, I must thank each and every individual, including me as part of this program, and giving me some insights. The one query which I have to Mr. Panditji, in the beginning you quoted there are two examples of some crises during your tenure as a regional director and the managing director. So when you had a crisis, I would like to know what are the principles that you had in your mind to drive the field. That's it. Thank you so much for giving the time.
Yeah. Hello. I belong to Group 1, Chandrasekhar here. So my reflection is that it triggered the sense of anchoring within me. How important anchoring is to me, because it's very difficult for me to operate when I'm along with the tides that is going. So I visualize myself like a ship which has an anchor underneath the sea. However gusty the wind is, the ship is not going to move a muzzle, and it's able to stay where it is, and it's able to stay put where it is, and that is the best position to be, right? So anchoring and the anchorage within me becomes very important. And thanks, Raghu, for having reinforced that in me.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Chandu here. So as I mentioned in my group, which is 1, the 5 archetypal, five characters from the Mahabharata and their key characteristics, that bit resonated a lot with me. And in the past, I have, because I've gone through a lot of crisis myself in business, the Sahadev character is one which has been quite useful for me. And I think he's been a fairly understated chappy.
Absolutely.
Because he's got a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, he's always a guy nobody asked the question because he's been cursed. That if you answer the question without anybody asking, your skull might kind of burst, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think there are too many Sahadevans in our Indian system. And
absolutely.
I think that that kind of implicit wisdom of tapping into that, for me, was something that I learned through my own various crises. And to cultivate that particular very exquisite but understated characteristic for me, in a time like this, I think is highly important.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Should we move to group 2?
Group 2? Yeah. Group 2.
I am from group 2. In fact, adding on to what Chandu had said, the discussion, we had a similar kind of conversation as to how real collaboration is when you're able to bring all the propensities together, and how some of the propensities are not really valued in certain spaces. So one of the key themes that emerged in our conversation is about how do we bring all these propensities and value each of these propensities.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Very important.
Ashika, Lalita, please do add in.
So another point that we were discussing was the point that impacted me most was the uniqueness part. So how do we push ourselves? We try and fit in. So in organization also, it will be very evident. Certain personalities grow up faster. So all BMAs grow up faster. So what about other people who are thinkers and who are slow implementers, who are strategic? So should organization also look at diversity in terms of personality wise,
Absolutely.
not only between language or geography, but also personality, which role is suitable for whom? So if you put someone in a role that they're not comfortable with and you expect them to only deliver, they can't do it. So how do you
Absolutely.
also keep that in mind?
Yeah.
Also, when we
If I can just add a little thing here, Ashika,
Yeah.
when we talk about diversity, we tell people if you're only going to value BMAs, then talking about feminine and masculine is of no meaning at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we look at diversity from a different perspective. Yeah, thank you.
So one concerning point for me will be is that even HRs are becoming a bunch of BMAs with all doing only transactional works. So I'm not able to fit in like that. I stand out that okay, you're not so I implementer, but I can't do it. Be an implementer, be in HR. So that is the confusion that I'm going through.
Interesting.
Okay, I'll speak for group 3. This is Nishant here. So I think the point which we discussed in our group was the fact that we're looking at even if we're looking at developing these propensities or understanding them, that will take a sort of degree of time. But the tiger is right in front of me. We are looking at situations which are coming and multiplying on a daily basis. Like Madhur spoke about, cash flow issues. We spoke about, actual factory issues which are happening. The blue collar workers being told to, guys, how are you going to manage? What are they going to do? Their anxieties. How do we do all this? It's just a little overwhelming at this particular point.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
So my suggestion is to find somebody, if it's possible, in this context, who's not overwhelmed. See, the fundamental difference in this context and other contexts is that when 1 or 2 companies are going through a crisis, there are other people who are stable, whom you can speak to. Here, it's because it's widespread, finding a quiet listening post will become that much more difficult. Yeah.
Thanks, Abhi.
Yeah.
Group 4.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to jump in for this one. Our discussions were largely around what triggered in each of us.
Very nice.
So in that sense, each of us had a unique, I would say, experience and a unique point of view. So I don't think it'll be fair on my part to try and sum it all up in one line or statement. So I would just say that it has been extremely useful. And from my side, the word that came up was I was awestruck by the very idea that something which is several thousand years old is still relevant, and more than relevant. In fact, its application couldn't be coming in at a more useful time like this. And what couple of my roommates mentioned is that they would like to find out how to balance these archetypes, discover more about it.
Yeah.
And so many of them are very comfortable with the idea that doing nothing sometimes and just going deeper within ourselves is a good idea. Not get into a frenzy of activity.
Yeah.
And just let the space, it's the stimulus and response and the space that is between the stimulus and response. How do you expand a little more on that? So that's what emerged. I will ask the others to add in case I have missed out on something, and then maybe some more insights I would like to share.
So, Raghu, hi, this is Satya here.
Hi, Satya.
So I just wanted to ask you, I mean, I just found the fact that the archetype and the 5 characters of those seeds are there within all of us. My doubt was you spend most of your life thinking you're just one or two archetypes kind of overlapping. And now in these trying times, how easy would it be to draw upon the reserves of the other archetypes, which one, in my mind, I think they were lying dormant. I mean, how can I get those archetypes and those reserves that I would need now?
Just a quick answer, Satya. This is why I said, trust your uniqueness. No?
Okay.
See, what I find is, if you stay away from your immediate responses, which is your automatic responses, not autopilot. If you can resist being in the autopilot and sit back, you will discover that there are other things in you. Yeah. For example, for myself, I have found that actually there are parts of me which resemble a cousin whom I haven't really, respected or something like that. No, I just kind of held them like that. But you keep quiet, you sit back and say, hey, these kind of reactions that are not working. And you find that you actually have, these seeds in you. And then you have to just trust it. See, you've been proficient with the others simply because the context has continuously reinforced it. Not because it's not there in you. And now the context is demanding something different. So if you just learn to sit back and not react, they will come up. And when they come up, respect it.
Thank you.
The Western terminology for that is amygdala hijack.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Anybody else from group 3?
Group 4.
So whenever you have
Group
that,
4.
whenever you have that hijack, do pranayama.
Yes.
That's the quick, immediate solution.
Left nostril breathing. Yes.
Yeah, do that. It'll quieten you down. But yeah, you have to follow it up after that with more work.
True.
Group 4, anybody else?
They're all the Nakulas.
It's possible.
Group 5?
Yeah, that's me.
Vaishakhi.
So my group had varied thoughts, and I'm trying to represent them. RK has very diligently made notes. It's so nice. I think all of us resonated with the 5 princes and the fact that Indic wisdom has given us the knowledge to be actually comfortable with the unknown, because we've always been with comfortable with the unknown. And the trick now is to, the learning is to just stick to the basics and the fundamentals. Then there's this whole acceptance that the five princes actually bring us the heroic capabilities which we can use in the current situation. And not to compare your skills with others, but to, and that was my point, bring out what is unique in you. And I think that we are constantly looking outside for answers instead of inside. And I think this is the right time to actually look inside for answers, especially in the context of the 5 princes and the powers that we have within us. And I quite understand that, we have all those capabilities. And I love the way, Raghu, you explained the fact that, we behave in a certain way when things are in order. And now it's time to behave, become our heroic selves, given that we are in times of chaos. So for me, that was quite a nice way and revealing way of looking at things and saying that, yeah, the situation demands that we become bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And remember, hero is not like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He might actually be the puny guy next to him who's telling Schwarzenegger what's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thanks, Vaishakhi.
Thank you.
Anybody else from Group 5 wanted to share?
This is RK here. I mean, Vaishakhi already brought this point of sticking to basics. Whenever I was just, what evoked in me was in cricket, when somebody loses form, they say, go back to basics.
Absolutely.
Don't try too many things at this time. Now, don't go and do some new learning. You already know it. You just have to come and perform basics. So the revelation that came with Raghu's talking and Pandit's experience was that our Indic system, when we look at other systems, I just don't want to specifically say Western, but other systems talk about try this new thing, and keep on trying new things, and we don't know whether that will get us to any success. But the Indic system that came as revelation when Raghu spoke was just go back and do what you're normally doing, being calm, being empathetic. All this was there whether we had this crisis or not. So go back and do that, and then you'll surely see success. And I go back to this word of surrender, which is coming to me in the last 10-15 days. Is surrender, and as he said, Raghu said, start with the I don't know kind of thing. Surrender is basically I don't know, and then all these basics will come to you, and just play by basics, and then we will be successful. Is something that came very strong in the minds of all the people actually in the group when we discussed.
Yeah, RK, you also have to remember one thing, Mullah Nasruddin has said this. He said, trust in God, but first tie up your camel.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, RK. Thank you so much. Anybody else from any group? We have a couple of minutes that anybody else wants to share a thought?
Hi. Sorry, go ahead, Vaishakhi.
Yes, Yatish.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Yatish. I was part of Group 5. Raghu, what resonated with me was when you said the Nakula personality, right? Where you said, although you take toxic feelings from outside, you should be able to convert that into a positive feeling. And
that is a Nakula capability. Yeah.
Yeah, Nakula capability. So I was reminded of what Stephen Covey has also said in his 7 Habits. He talks about a transition person who is able to absorb all the negativity around him and be a positive influence on others. So I'm sure it's influenced from our scriptures. But I was very glad to hear that Nakula was really, the essence of Nakula was being able to absorb the negative and give out the positive. And I think once we consciously practice that, what needs to be done at the moment automatically emerges, from within. You don't have to really look for templates to act upon, or standard operating procedures to follow. I think it will emerge from within as to what needs to be done at that moment. So thanks for that perspective.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just finishing.
Yes,
may I ask the question? Yeah, the question is that very often we don't seem to accept what is happening.
That's right.
Right? And the trouble starts. And from there, I think I get pushed into any of these characters. I mean, even in this situation of the lockdown, in my colony, for instance, the first 4 or 5 days, many of them refuse to accept that it's real.
I know.
And there's a lot of agitation, so on. So now, how does one understand the way to accept and then thereafter move forward? I think this is a very difficult one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
many
I
countries
can't.
are in is because they refuse to accept that this is a
Right.
serious problem.
That's right. And then they go giving, yeah. But Sridhar, the practice of yoga tells you that change is imminent all the time. No, the fundamental premise of many of these practices is change is always happening.
Yeah.
And therefore, you are not trying to recreate and hold on to the present as a permanent thing.
Right.
Once you internalize that, and that's why I think most Indians, subconsciously we've internalized this, that change is going to happen, and the life is not going to be permanent. So we're able to handle these things much more easily.
Right.
Yeah, because I just had a couple of discussions with people from abroad and some Indians, and also in that group, it's very clear. The moment the standard things, the fully expected things are not working, the underlying sense of panic that I pick up from these people is very different from the Indian group. The Indian group is also saying, oh, this is not happening, that's not happening, but there is some acceptance at some level.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Hi, Raghu, I'm Satish.
Hi.
When you were talking, one thing which was triggering inside me was how much have I explored all the 5 archetypes within myself, and how much have I accepted myself?
Good question.
Was a question which I was going very deeply into.
Good question.
And even now, when you were telling, initially when this thing started, I was pretty calm. I mean, in the sense, not much because I had been practicing yoga and meditation for long years. So I didn't know that this is building something inside me itself. That practices of building something.
Absolutely.
I didn't have that realization that it is building me. And now when you spoke about it, I'm able to sort of, come into, marry those things and understand that all that which I've been doing or making some sense.
Yeah.
See, and that's been a great reflection.
In autonomic nervous system studies, which is 90% of all diseases are autonomic nervous system disturbance diseases. They talk about coping energy and how you build up coping energy. And that the present stress, if it eats up coping energy, you get into high stress. Now, when you do asana practice, when you look at life in a certain way, you actually build up a lot of coping energy.
Absolutely.
Which is why when a crisis hits you, you're not groping.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a very important thing, but for some reason we have forgotten to give it the this thing. That's why I said visceral. The Indian leadership, Indian preparation will starts with the visceral. Your pranic energy has to be conserved. It has to be held. It has to be nurtured. Right? And that forms the basis of will. If this is not nurtured, there is no will. Will is actually pranic energy that's focused in something. No?
Sure.
That's why it's so important. Yeah.
Thank you, Raghu. I think we have...
Vivek, I just thought I'd share a small story, Vivek. I was
Please.
Yeah. See, for doing leadership training, I've used this outward bound training quite a lot. Huh? And I used to do it in the name of learning adventure. Right? So when you put these people into this new context, it's like a VUCA for them. Right? And, we facilitators love to scare them a little bit. So we've taken a set of people to Wayanad and told them about tigers and elephants. And there was an elephant trumpet that you can hear. So then we said, night you have to patrol and things like that. So, each tent had to send one guy out or 2 people out. And at a certain hour, after 1 hour, they would go to the next tent and all that. So suddenly in the middle of that night, there was a huge commotion. Okay, everybody got scared like hell. There was huge noise. Then we found out what happened. It was about, 1:30, 2 o'clock or 2 o'clock shift change. So these 2 guys have gone to the next tent to quietly wake up somebody. So they went to open out the zip of the tent and call the two guys who were supposed to sleep next to the door so that, you don't disturb anybody. So when they went there and they tried to open the tent, the huge noise was because these fellows had packed up all their boxes against the zip, right? And when he opened it, all the boxes fell and they got terribly scared. Okay. And then when we could get them to become calm and we asked them, why did you stack this up like this? Very sheepishly, they were saying, this is the doorway through which animals can come. So we thought we'll protect the door. Yeah. Now, and this is not the only time this kind of thing. This is an extreme example of the OBT, but this kind of thing happens very often, So being able to be calm is so important, because what an assumption they've made, that the bear, something is going to come knock on the door and say, may I? And come only through, it'll know where the door of the is. Yeah. And I think in the e-VUCA world, you have to kind of sit back and say, okay, if the elephant is trumpeting somewhere, let it trumpet. Let me take care of my basics. And if the lion and the elephant does come in, my tent is not going to protect me in any way.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
I heard somebody say that mastery is nothing but doing the basics extraordinarily well.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. There's no two ways about it. And especially under crisis, Subramaniam.
Right.
You can't learn new tricks at this time. Na?
Absolutely.
So you have to really trust your capabilities, remain calm, don't get into the amygdala. Yeah.
Aunt Amy.
Yeah. And stay there. And all that is also yogic practice. Na?
Thank you, Panditji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thanks.
Sorry,
I had to go off.
Thanks,
Thank
Pandit.
you so much.
Yeah, I think we should
you,
be closing now, Vivek.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I think what I'm left with is this thing of deliberate calmness, Raghu. And I think it is one of the most powerful things that for me. It is.
Yeah, you can't make it come up suddenly during crisis. You have to practice it.
Yeah.
You have to practice it for a long time. Yeah.
That is really, really powerful. Yeah. For me, that was a great takeover. A couple of thoughts before we close. One is two things stayed with me. One is that we too tend to get caught up in a lot of the standards that are going around. Right?
Vivek?
Happened.
Vivek has lost his laptop.
Yes.
Okay, time to change your laptop, Vivek.
No, it's a connection. He must be in a place where there are a lot of people and this is the time when there are a hell of
overload on the Wi-Fi. There you are, back. Okay, Vivek.
Sure, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't know if you heard, I mean, my last statement was Western models are all about obedience, right? And the models had all been defined keeping obedience in mind. While what we need today is just our ability to trust our own intuition, right? So I just wanted to leave the entire team with this thought and mull over it. Watch the space. Like I said, it's a series of webinars. This was the first one that we had launched. We will continue the series. We have another 6 more planned, and we will be in touch with you on the whole series of leadership.crisis.Indic Lens. So we'll continue to work with you. The entire recording of the webinar is available. It will be posted on YouTube, and we will send you the link tomorrow. And just last thought, if case you have any other questions that you think that got evoked for you, a perspective or a thought, please do write to us, and we'll be quite happy to engage with you to a separate conversation in any form. We're more than happy to support you in whatever you're going through. So thank you so much, Pandit. Thank you so much, Raghu. Thank you so much for everybody participated. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much.